Hi everybody, I'm Greg Fishel. Welcome to bonus weather video number 2 for this week. And this took a lot of time, more time than I had counted on it taking, to go through all of the Colorado State University tropical season forecasts going back to 1984 when they started doing this, and taking a look at the verifications for the forecast number of named storms versus what actually happened. I think I'd like to do this again, not tonight, but for hurricanes and major hurricanes, because named storms, a lot of times you can get these storms that last for a day or two, and they sort of make the season look more inflated than it really is. But the bottom line is that everybody wants to know, how many biggies are there going to be? And the hurricanes and the major hurricanes would certainly accomplish that. So this is just named storms tonight, but I think I'm going to go back and redo this for hurricanes and major hurricanes. Maybe I'll be able to do that by Friday and show you what that shows. So, all right, well, let's go on ahead and get started here. And a lot of numbers to look at. So this is, and it just so happens that since they started in 1984, I could look at 4 10-year periods, okay, of equal length. And so that sort of makes the comparison between the 10-year periods a little bit better than it would be if you had like 2 10-year periods and a 5 and a 3 or something like that. So anyways, back in 1984 to 1993, they only issued forecasts in June and August. They added April in 1995. So that was the June forecast for the number of named storms. The August forecast would actually happen. And the delta is the difference between what was forecast and what actually happened. So like take for instance in 1984, there were 3 storms short of what actually happened in both June and August. In 1985, the forecast was perfect in June and exceeded by 1 in August. So forecast actually got slightly worse, but that's, splitting hairs. So you can see all those numbers there, and I'll cycle through this and I'll show you what this looks like graphically after that. So this is 1994 to 2003, and again, notice in 1995 we added the April forecast there when they started doing that, and so you can see the errors there. Now 1995 was a tough year because it overperformed, if you will, and so the forecasts were way under what actually happened. But the rest of them aren't too bad. And then we go to the period 2004 to 2013, and again, 2005 was a year when the season just went bonkers, and we ended up with 28 storms, got into the Greek alphabet, and the original forecast was too low by 15. The June update was 13 under, and then by August it was 8 under. And that's a forecast that's issued in early August. So you might be thinking, well, gee, by the end of August, there's already been some storms. But in early August, usually there typically have not been a whole lot. And so that is still a true forecast, and it got better with time, but even in August, it was still 8 short of reality. And then finally, 2014 to 2023, again, 2020 was that crazy year where we had 30 named storms. And so the initial forecast was 14 under, then in June it went to -11, and then in August it was -6. So those really bad years, 2005 and 2020, sort of skew the errors up a little bit. Okay, so there's 2 different ways to look at this. A bias is whether or not you are consistently underdoing the forecast or overdoing the forecast, okay? And I did this 2 ways. I wanted to look at the average of both the pluses and the minuses to see if there was any trend there. And then also, and I'll show you this in just a second, I took the absolute value of those errors. So like a 3 ranked the same as a -3, because my fear was that if you average out the minus and the pluses, it can make it look like you're better than you are, okay? As opposed to just looking at how off were you. It doesn't matter if it's plus or minus, just how off were you. And so I did it both ways. So this is the April bias, and you can see that for all 3 of these 10-year periods, the forecast was actually underdone. It was underdone compared to what actually happened. But if you take a look at the absolute value and average those, then you get about 3.5 and almost 5 and almost 5. And the interesting thing about this is that it hasn't gotten better, okay? It's actually gotten slightly worse with time. So the ability to forecast hurricane seasons and tropical cyclone seasons is really not getting any better. It's not bad. It's not that it's bad, it's just that it's not improving. Okay, now we move on to June, and again, all 4 10-year periods were under forecast, okay, if you average out the pluses and the minuses. And then if you take a look at the absolute values, you can see that, again, if anything, the forecasts have gotten just slightly worse. Now, going from 3 to 4, that's not really a big trend, but it certainly isn't getting better, okay? That's one thing we can say definitively. And then we finally moved to August, and in all cases, the forecast got better April, June, and August, okay? So there was improvement there in all 4 10-year periods. So here's the bias, just very slightly above, like half a storm over forecast in the first 2 10-year periods, and then again under forecast from 2004 to 2013 and 2014 to 2023. And if we take a look at the August errors, again, you can see that if anything, the trend is slightly worse, but again, definitely not better. So I found this interesting in the sense that, and this really is a similar trend to when you take a look at the trend in the observed tropical storms, okay, named storms, is that there really hasn't been any true increase in those numbers over time. What we are seeing is that the strongest hurricanes are intensifying more rapidly than they have in the past. But in terms of the absolute number of storms and hurricanes and major hurricanes, there's no discernible trend there at all, going back to the beginning of the satellite era, which is about 1960. So anyways, this is a forecast verification here, looking at it in 2 different ways. And the takeaway is that more times than not, they have under forecast the number of storms. So anybody that is feeding you this thing about, oh yeah, they always forecast more than actually happens, that's not true, okay? This pretty much proves that. But in terms of absolute errors, in other words, the pluses and the minuses are ranked the same, then in those situations, it's clear that the forecasts are not getting better. They're not getting massively worse by any stretch. These are very small changes, but it is fair to say that there has been no discernible improvement since 1984. So it continues to be a challenge to try to predict what the tropical cyclone season is going to be like. And again, over the next couple of days, if I have time, I'll redo this for hurricanes and major hurricanes, because I think that may actually tell a more important story than the one that I've just shared with you here. So that's it for now. That's bonus weather video number 2 for this week. The next one coming up Friday, and the next daily update, both version 1 and version 2, coming up tomorrow. You all take care, folks, and have a wonderful, what's little left of Wednesday evening, and we'll talk to you again tomorrow. See you later.